Hi everyone, as promised, part 3. So I really want to show you how far I've got and how I've got to this stage. It's quite a jump, but the trouble is when you start something it's hard to say, right, I'm going to set up the lights and the camera and then action. Or in my case, poor lighting and a cheap phone action. It's just you find you get ahead of yourself sometimes. So enough of my waffle. So there was no primer. I just slightly sanded away some of the glue stains, which you get when you use liquid glue. A slight melting of the plastic. Got rid of those because they will show through otherwise. What else? Then I give it a thorough wash. Left it under cover for a couple of hours. And then my main paint application, once I'd masked and covered all the relevant areas, was Extreme Metals AK products. White aluminium and matte aluminium. The matte aluminium was used about 80% and just certain areas with the white aluminium. Now you can't mix the paints I have, Tamiya paints with these, because it'll just go all lumpy. So once that application had dried and I left it a good couple of days, I used this product, Mr. Colour Super Metallic. Now this you can blend with Tamiya paints to a certain point. If you get the ratios wrong, it'll start going lumpy if you start adding quite a bit. So, but you can subtly change this colour. And then I just picked out certain areas of the Dornier and painted that. I don't know if you can see around the tail area and the spar. Don't know if you can see that. What's that underneath? Now I left that to dry, and then the next thing to do was to paint the splintered areas. Now I didn't go for the usual German dark green splinter colour. I went for the I think ME262. It's like two greys, a very dark bluey grey and a violet grey, not a violent grey, a violet grey. See on the tail roughly. So once the majority of the painting had been done, then it was time to add a wash. Now you can't use an enamel wash on this surface because I didn't protect it, and to protect this surface would have affected the sheen. Whether using satin, gloss or a matte varnish, you would have affected the overall tonal effect. So because it was unprotected, I had to use a water-based wash, and I used Flory's black wash. I don't really use this a lot because it's too stark, black is, but a dirt wash on the surface here wouldn't have stood out as much as the black would. So I filled in all the panel lines, left it for a couple of hours and then wiped it off. I don't know whether you can see the side of that fuselage there. It's left a slight stain, a demarcation of the panel lines. So not only have I picked out the detail, I've picked out the relevant panels as well. I don't know if you can see that. So that's all wiped off, and the next stage then is to start adding all the different panel effects, picking out the panels with the washes. And this is pretty good stuff, the Mr. Metallic Colour Aluminium. There's all sorts of metal colours in this range, and you can paint it on and you can buff the colour out, and it's really good. You don't want to go too overboard with it, just pick out certain areas. So I will do that later, and this is the stage I'm at now. I'm going to start weathering the surface, make it a bit more interesting. The other thing I want to mention as well is the decals, or lack of them. If I could have had or found decals of these black crosses in my stash or in my piles of decal sheets, I would have done, but I couldn't, so I had to end up creating artwork on the computer and then cutting them out and creating masks. So cut them out with the masking tape underneath, and you end up with a very awkward and messy stencil. So all the crosses have been painted on. As I said, if I've had the decals, I would have had a go, and I would have cut as much of the carrier film out as possible and then applied them, because believe you me, doing this was a pain in the bum. I hated it with a passion, but it was the only way, unless I ordered some online. So that's done, and now I'm at the stage of, as I've said, picking out details and trying to make this surface a bit more interesting, but knowing when to stop. There's looking interesting and looking like the M25 if I'm not careful, so it's keeping it at bay. So I'll getting on with that now. As you can see, I've started to mask certain areas, and with this I don't know whether I'm going to use pencil lead or the metallic paint and buff it up. So I am experimenting at the moment, so we shall see how that goes, and if that's successful I may do a couple more areas, but as I said, just try to keep a lid on going overboard with the effect. So I'll get on with that and we'll see what it looks like in a minute. So I've finished the props, and I've just used oils, just used greens on the tips and faded them in, try and make it look patchy. So they're done. All the doors and undercarriage doors are done now. I just need to weather the surface there. Done those. What else? Canopies are done now. They're in a natural finish. I've just got a little access window there to paint either side. What else? The rear tail parts and the ailerons. I need to weather these, or add a bit of interest, should I say. They've all been given a wash. And that's as far as I got. Just got to make a start on the pilot at some point. While I was looking through all these peripherals, I forgot to mention the cannons. So I've drilled the holes out, which is easy enough to do, just gives them a bit more life. And I've added aluminium rod, and once these are painted, these along with the exhaust and a few little bits will be the last to add. I'm just going to make sure that I get my measurement length right somehow, so I've got that to figure out yet, and to paint. So yeah, forgot about that, sorry. So I've finished as far as I'm concerned. Just a few little pieces to add on. This, excuse the phone. This should just come off. This panel here, cowl. I'll clip it on just like that, so it will be removable as the engine panel there. Then on the other side, and that one will be shown in the open position, along with the such like. The pilot, I made a start. Well, I put a coat of primer on. I'm going to be away. I'm not back till Thursday. And I didn't want to rush him, and I didn't want to put this project off any longer. I need to get it done out of the way because I want to get on with other things. So the other thing is the canopy. So I don't know. I think I'm going to have it in a closed position. I think it looks better like that. So I don't know. I forgot about the wings to mention them. They fitted reasonably well. On the top seam, no gaps anywhere. But underneath there was a little bit of hairline gap that needed filling in. And once again I used the Vallejo putty. Filled it in and then wiped it off. I'll turn the model around. As I say, I'll take some shots, permanent shots underneath. That panel will be permanently open. I haven't fixed it yet. It's still loose. You can see that. The top antenna, the loop aerial there, I made that from scratch because the kit's one is horrible, so I replaced that. One thing I will say are the exhaust stacks. They are tricky. I ended up with 2 left over, so yes, just something to bear in mind. They were very tricky. I had to take the shroud off. I had it fixed before, and they do go in a certain way. They bend upwards, so it's not straightforward as I thought. And yeah, just a bit of care around the area. As I said, I'll take some photographs. It's a pity about the pilot, but I'd only rush it, so few issues with the kit, but I think it's a beautiful model. I really love it. Nice scale, nice subject, and I'm glad I went for this natural finish. So I want to thank you for watching. Any questions? And I'll show you some final still pictures. See you later.